you can't invent players in free agency. They wanted to sign Brock Besser. They wanted to. But when they started to get the inkling the day before that Brock had major options, and even I think they were willing to go up to a 6-year term. I think when they realized that he probably was being swayed somewhere else, and now we know Vancouver, I think that they just decided that to pivot and go for Tarasenko. Could they have gone for Mangiapane at less money, younger, couple years? Yeah. But I think they're taking a 1-year bet. They're keeping themselves affordable. He's tradable at the deadline as well, even though he's got a no trade. But, I just think that he's got a modified no trade now, actually. It changes. But I just think that this is what we expected. But now it's like you kind of hope that, like, all right, keep your eyes open. Is if Cade Thompson, if he finally says enough, get me out of here. If there's other players around the league that Bill has been open, talking about Jack Eichel, Matthew Tkachuk, Mikko Rantanen, that big guys get traded in the year. And I just think that free agency has proven that I think every year it's going to be pretty lousy. So now I think he's going to scour the landscape in the trade market for the next year or so.
And I don't think, especially with how you guys prefaced the Tarasenko deal, right? I think a lot of people were prepared. Okay, Besser's not happening here.
Yeah.
I think the entire hockey landscape was shocked when pretty much right away on July 1st, Brock Besser signs not only a deal that was maybe a little bit lower than expected, but with the Vancouver Canucks, who was pretty much 32 on everyone's list if they were going to guess where he was going to land. What happened?
Yes. Yeah. Well, what's funny? I don't know if you remember March 7th, I was in Vancouver. I was on that road trip, if you remember, Joe, and that was the day of the trade deadline. And I was at their morning skate and Brock was out there and I was live tweeting that Brock was out there. And I actually tweeted that sources were telling me that the Canucks re-engaged with Brock. Now, it obviously didn't happen at that time, but I think that it showed that, one, they had some interest still. I think that when it comes, I think what's most fascinating about the Brock Besser deal, and this might also say something about just how incredibly good Ben Hankinson is as an agent. Like, he's, to me, one of the best in the business. Like, everybody gets paid when you go to Ben Hankinson. Like, if I was a player, I wish I had him negotiate my athletic deal. Is that you think that's ethical, Joe?
Whatever gets you the bag, man.
Yeah.
So
he got Letary and Boyd one-way contracts today. The guy's unreal. But what does it say to you that they couldn't even get a third or second round pick for Brock Besser at the time, or that's what all they were really being offered? And then all of a sudden, Ben goes into yesterday, and he's got 7-year deals at this type of price coming in from everywhere. There were like a lot of teams going after them, including the Wild, were willing to, I think, go up to 6 years on him, maybe 5 or 6 years at a significant AAV. And he winds up going back to Vancouver. But I think what that shows you is how difficult it is to make a trade in today's NHL. Like, I think this goes back to the Wild. Like, I think we all look at, Bill Guerin and people are disappointed that he wasn't able to get trades that materialize. But I think with the cap going up and up and up, I think it's actually going to be harder to make trades. And at the deadline, they couldn't get anything for him. And then he goes into free agency and everybody in the league wants him at significant money. And so it's really fascinating to me that it just shows how difficult right now it is to make a move when this guy was there for the taking at the trade deadline for anybody. They couldn't get a significant offer. Patrick Allvin basically announces that to the world that they couldn't get a significant offer, essentially did it in a disparaging way. I was at the press conference. And then all of a sudden, they come back to him and offer him 7 years at $7.25. Would you guys pause? Is that all right?
A lot of people are talking about, obviously, Besser choosing to sign in Vancouver and not coming to the Minnesota Wild. But, Joe, a lot of people don't really understand that there's going to be a lot more to it than just Wild choosing not to sign players.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key thing now is everyone's going to have money and cap space going forward. So it's not like they can just overpay people and then that'll be the carrot to bring them to Minnesota. I think you need to create yourself as a destination spot for players to come here and win. I think Mike's had some conversation with people players coming to playoffs, and I've talked to other people too on the league about Minnesota, and I think there's a lot of really good vibes as far as like the place to live and raise a family and the market in terms of the fans. But I think people want to see the Wild take another step and win a playoff round, maybe before convincing themselves to make this a long-term spot in free agency. And good news for the Wild is Nico Sturm did pick to return in Minnesota. Obviously, Tarasenko waived his no-trade clause to come to Minnesota with the assist from Kirill Kaprizov, who chatted with him on the phone on Monday. But Mike, I think that's kind of the key going forward here. With more money in the pockets of the Wild brass, like, can they convince some of these guys to come here free agency or waive a no trade for that big trade in the middle of the season?
Yeah, I think that's the big thing, is that like in today's NHL with the cap going up and up, if they are going to delve into free agency, or with, you know, 3/4 of the league, it seems, having trade protection, you know, you're constantly going to have to sit there and you know, recruit, but show everybody that you're a destination. And the way to do that is winning. You know, look, the perception out there is, I know that the Wild are sensitive to this, but look, they've made the playoffs 8 times in the last 10 years, but they've also lost in the first round 8 times in the last 10 years. And I can tell you, like, when I walk into the Florida room now, because I've covered them for 3 playoff rounds and playoff years in a row, like they all know me as somebody that covers the Wild, so they always ask me about the Wild, and they all talk about, and these are big players, talking about how they're so good every year in the regular season, but they just can't get over the hump. And I just feel like that's the perception out there. And so until you win, until you show the rest of the league that you can get over that quote unquote hump, you know, it's going to be hard to recruit players in a league where there's 32 great markets, and there's soon going to be 34 great markets, and maybe even 36 soon after that. And you know, they're just going to continue to expand this league, so it's just going to get harder and harder, especially as the cap continues to climb and everybody's got money.
I think that's what's encouraging, I guess, right now, if you're a Wild fan, is that Kirill Kaprizov at least believes that the Wild can win and has been very happy. Obviously, he talked to Tarasenko about coming into play here in Minnesota. It seems like Bill Guerin's been very confident talking to us about signing Kirill to an extension, which he was eligible starting on Tuesday. Mike, what is your sense on kind of where we are in that process and what that number might look like now that we have free agency kind of over?
Well, I thought for a long time that he's signing. He just seemed, everybody I talked to behind the scenes says how much he loves it here. And I know, again, I just said that there's 32 great markets, and, you know, maybe he's appealing, finds that appealing somewhere else. But the new CBA rules actually really help the Wild.